The shuttle's engines hummed with a tension that matched Ambassador Serafina Rowe's heartbeat. Through the reinforced viewport, the desolate plains of Zytar Prime stretched beneath them like cracked obsidian glass, a vast, black wasteland, pockmarked by sulfur vents and skeletal rock formations. Far above, the planet's twin moons hovered in eternal vigil, their ghostly light casting long, spindly shadows across the barren landscape. Serafina stood, perfectly still, hands clasped, behind her back as the shuttle touched down with a muted thud. Her ceremonial robes, woven from adaptive nano-weave that shimmered between midnight blue and deep violet, draped around her in soft folds. Beside her, Colonel Anders Vance checked his plasma carbine and scanned the horizon with wary eyes. Every diplomat's instinct screamed that something about this planet was off. In every whisper of wind, every swirl of dust, in the soulless gleam of those black plains. A hatch opened with a pneumatic hiss, and the ambassador stepped onto the landing pad. The thin air burned her lungs with each breath. She lifted her chin and surveyed the scene. Alien delegates, tall, lithe figures in flowing robes of electric green, crimson, and bone white, hovered on lev pods around the perimeter. Their expressions varied: curiosity, condescension, predatory interest. None spoke, none moved. "Welcome, humans." A voice crackled through the shuttle's comm link before the official greeting came. It was Billings, the summit's synthetic MC, his tone polite but hollow. "Please proceed to the Obsidian Hall. Your presence honors the assembly." Honors, Serafina thought. But at what cost? A score of mute guards, silhouettes of polished metal and cerulean optics, opened a path through the crowd. The ambassador led her retinue forward, every footstep echoing on the obsidian tile, each echo a reminder that they were intruders in a realm where physical laws bent at the will of its masters. The obsidian hall's entrance yawned ahead. Two colossal doors carved from a single black stone slab, veins of glowing cobalt coursing through its surface like living circuitry. As the doors parted in silence, Serafina was struck by the cavernous expanse within, an arena of impossible height, its ceiling lost in darkness, lit only by constellations of floating energy motes that drifted like captive fireflies. At the heart of the hall stood the summit table, a broad, circular dais of the same luminescent obsidian, etched with glyphs of power that pulsed in rhythm with the delegates' central energy cores. Around it, the galaxy's greatest and deadliest civilizations assembled. To Serafina's left sat the Exalt of Cethern, an arachnid-like being whose 8 spindly arms hovered above the table, the segmented carapace of its head gleaming like a black pearl. To her right, the Warlord of Relics, muscles rippling beneath crystalline skin that refracted the light into sharp, violent prisms. Beyond them, draped in a mantle of bioluminescent tendrils, was the matron of Vixila, her hive-mind aura pulsing with the thoughts of countless progeny. Across the table, ogres from the Iron Barons, psionic monks from the Ajar Nebula, and a silent contingent of quantum-shifting beings known only as the Voidwalkers completed the circle. Each delegate bore the scars of their homeworld's Deathworld, some from acid rains, others from kinetic bombardments, and still others from constant psychic warfare. Serafina's pulse quickened. She drew a steadying breath and raised her voice, amplified through the summit's comm link so that every participant heard her words simultaneously in their native tongue. "Honored delegates, humanity comes in peace. We offer our hand in friendship, knowledge, and mutual defense. Let our shared presence here mark the beginning of a new era, one where no civilization must face its death world alone." Silence followed. A low hum reverberated through the floor and the energy motes dimmed as if pondering her proposition. Then, the Exalt of Cethern's multifaceted eyes blinked in unison. "Peace," it clicked, voice layered in harmonic overtones. "A fragile hope on a merciless stage. Very well, human. Show us your worth." At that signal, the floor beneath the summit table began to shift. Stone panels slid away to reveal a web of glowing tendrils, power conduits perhaps, or something far more sinister. The room tilted, and gravity reversed in sweeping arcs. A labyrinth was forming, a gauntlet designed to test, to judge, to cull. Serafina's jaw set. Her world had prepared for first contact, for diplomacy, for tentative trade agreements. They had not prepared for this. Yet as the floor cracked open and molten light seethed upwards, she felt the fierce spark of humanity's defiance. She would not yield, not here, not now. Humans adapt, she whispered under her breath, echoing the Exalt's words. Let them see our resilience. Beside her, Colonel Vance activated his exosuit's magnetic anchors and set his stance. The first trials were about to begin, and humanity would face them head-on. The hall's gravity field snapped like a whip. One moment, Ambassador Serafina Rowe and her team stood on solid obsidian. The next, they were slammed against the vaulted ceiling, their robes and hair floating weightless. Below them, the floor rearranged itself into jagged platforms and yawning chasms, each glowing fissure radiating a heat that blurred the edges of vision. Serafina steadied herself, fingers brushing the cold plating above her. The alien delegates, unflinching, merely adjusted their own gravity anchors and observed with clinical detachment. Only the warlord of relics let out a low, amused rumble. Its crystalline skin fractured light into dazzling shards that danced across the walls. Humans adapt, the Exalt of Seathern had said. And now, that proclamation was their summons to action. Colonel Vance, secure your team, Serafina ordered, voice calm despite the chaos. Keep formation. Vance responded with a curt nod, activating his exosuit's magnetic boots. The others followed suit. Lieutenant Arjun Patel's optic stabilizer flickered on. Dr. Lin Wei adjusted her medical pack harness, and Sergeant Malik Hayes engaged his kinetic shield, which bloomed around him like rippling water. Serafina dropped from the ceiling with controlled thrust from her suit's microjets, landing atop a narrow platform separated from her team by a molten river of cobalt light. She held out her hand. Come across, she called. Brace for the flux zones. Watch your step. Patel leaped next, using low-gravity drift to bridge the gap. His boots hissed as they latched onto the sizzling rock. Hayes went second, shield raised to block a sudden wave of scalding plasma that surged from a nearby crack. Wei moved last, pistol-grip medkit in hand, scanning for injuries even as the ground quaked. On the far side, the alien delegates remained perfectly still, their forms half buried in the girders of their own venue. The Exalt's spidery arms traced cryptic patterns in the air, each motion triggering a new hazard. Razor-edged columns of supercooled gas shot up. Flumes of neutron dust choked the air, and spectral tendrils of psionic energy coiled through the empty spaces, seeking any sign of fear. Serafina forced her lungs to inhale. The air tasted of ionized metal and distant starfire. Raising her voice so that every speaker in the hall transmitted her words in perfect translation, she declared, Humanity does not fracture under pressure. We build bridges where others see chasms. A low hum answered her, at first almost imperceptible, then swelling until the conduits beneath the floor glowed brighter, as if acknowledging her claim. The pathways began to stabilize. Platforms shifted into predictable patterns. The molten cobalt river slowed to a trickle, then hardened into a sturdy basalt causeway. The gathered delegates exchanged wary glances. Curiosity for the first time tempered their disdain, but the Exalt was not yet satisfied. With a flick of its arm, the gravity field reversed again, only this time in random pulses, jerking the humans from side to side, tossing them like rag dolls against the obsidian walls. Hayes' shield shattered under the strain. Patel's stabilizer shorted out in a cascade of sparks. Wei's medkit tumbled from her grasp. Serafina fell into the grip of the ceiling's magnetic lattice, feet braced against the ceiling tiles. She spotted the warlord grinning, facets fracturing the dim light. They struggle beneath simplicity, it rumbled. Let us see how they fare in complexity. The platform beneath her fractured once more, splitting into thousands of tiny shards that floated free as microasteroids. Plasma vents hissed at each seam, filling the air with searing sound and choking steam. A tendril of psychic mist wove through the shards, probing for fear. Serafina drew her ceremonial blade, a slender, energy-forged saber that hummed with violet light, and sliced through the mist like a comet's tail. The blade left a wake of searing silence, dispersing. The psionic probe, she shouted, "Form up! Focus on the pattern!" Below, Patel wrestled his stabilizer back online, and Hayes, gathering handfuls of broken shield fragments, remagnetized them into makeshift gauntlets. Wei charged her medkit's injector needles, preparing to counter thermal burns or plasma wounds. Serafina directed them with precise commands, her tactical mind racing. Vance, anchor the center platform. Arjun, redirect the gravity pulses with your stabilizer bursts. Time them to the Exalt's arm motions. Malik, use the gauntlets to clamp onto the ledges and form a human chain. Lin, stand by with triage. You might need to counteract psionic backlash. Their response was immediate, a coordinated symphony of movement and will. Harnessing their suits' magnetic fields, they latched onto surfaces, counterbalanced the erratic gravity shifts, and turned the Exalt's own pattern of motion against it. The complex gauntlet slowed, then halted. The floating shards ground together into a solid floor. The vents stilled. The psychic mist recoiled as if wounded. Silence reigned. For the first time, the alien delegates showed something like respect. The Exalt of Suthern's bulbous eyes contracted in what Serafina dared interpret as approval. Remarkable, it clicked. Your species weaves chaos into order, a gift worth harvesting. She met its gaze steadily. If you wished to learn from us, you could have asked, she replied, voice firm. Instead, you tried to break us. Now you know why that was your greatest mistake. A ripple of tension passed through the assembly. The first test was over, and humanity had not only survived, they had demonstrated ingenuity, courage, and unity in the face of engineered annihilation. As the motes of energy brightened once more, signaling a momentary ceasefire, Serafina allowed herself a tight smile. They had not just passed the trial, they had rewritten its rules, and in doing so they had sent a message no civilization could ignore. The air in the obsidian hall crackled, charged by the electric hum of the summit's arcane machinery. As the last vestiges of the Exalt's gravity gauntlet dissipated, Ambassador Serafina Rowe signaled her team forward. They stood shoulder to shoulder on the newly stabilized platform, hearts pounding, weapons and tools at the ready. Across the dais, the delegates watched intently. Where once they had lounged in cold detachment, now their stances were taut with anticipation. Even the matron of Vixila's bioluminescent tendrils quivered, as though sensing an unfamiliar energy in the human's midst. Now, Serafina murmured, and the humans surged into action. Sergeant Malik Bulwark Hayes charged first. His exosuit's reinforced servos whined as he vaulted over a 3-meter-wide chasm that split the hall in two. Below, molten cobalt veins pulsed like living veins of the planet. With a thunderous clang, he crashed onto the far ledge, planting his magnetic stabilizers deep into the obsidian. Then, arms spread wide, he anchored an enormous kinetic barrier that rippled outward, quelling a sudden eruption of superheated plasma jets. Blue-white sparks flared as the molten geysers collapsed against his shield, steam hissing in his wake. Behind him, Dr. Lin Wei dashed to a tangled mass of glowing conduits snaking beneath the summit table. Serafina, I've located the plasma. Feed, she called, voice unsteady against the din. Around her, the conduits pulsed with unstable energy. One wrong move and half the assembly would be incinerated. Reed-thin probes in hand, she slid beneath the table, fingers alight with the nanoscopic precision tools she had designed herself. With laser focus, she severed the main feed's containment field, isolating the unstable supercharge. A geyser of violet sparks arced skyward, then winked out as the conduit sealed itself shut. A cheer broke from the humans, but was cut short by a sudden tremor. From the far wall, a spiderweb of crystalline fractures blossomed, trailing light into the room. The warlord of relics had not been idle. Its crystalline claws had cracked open a hidden pressure chamber, releasing nanite-infested gas that billowed across the floor. Lieutenant Arjun Patel reacted instantly. He sidestepped the green mist's leading edge, raising his optic stabilizer to analyze its composition. Toxic, he reported in clipped tones. Psionic-enhanced nanites lethal within seconds. With a swift motion, he triggered his suit's emergency purge, flooding the chamber with an inert inertial blocking agent that condensed the gas into harmless crystalline dust. The motes of energy drifting overhead blinked as though nodding approval. Serafina seized the moment. She sprinted to the summit table's edge and planted her ceremonial blade into the obsidian. The sword's violet hum resonated with the table's glyphs, triggering a surge of raw power. Energy motes above descended, coalescing into a streaming column of iridescent light. With a precise series of blade strikes, each deft, economical, she carved new runes into the stone, subtly reconfiguring the hall's energy matrix. A wave of harmonic resonance washed through the room, stabilizing erratic power flows and neutralizing latent traps. All around her, the human team moved as one. Hayes held the barrier steady against pressure spikes. Wade tended to the faint burns on Patel's arm, and Patel, once he'd purged the nanites, connected a relay that rerouted power from the broken conduit to reinforce the barrier. Even the hatches sealing the side vents slid shut automatically, reacting to Wade's remote override. Silence fell once more. The energy motes pulsed in unison, bathing the hall in soft, warm light. From the far side of the dais, the exalt of Cithran's 8 arms clicked together in applause. "Impressive," it intoned. "Your champions rise swiftly. Your species exhibits both guile and courage." The warlord of relics inclined its crystalline head. "They do not merely survive, they shape the very battlefield to their will." Near, the matron of Vixila, a ripple of telepathic thought coursed through the air. Serafina felt it brush against her mind. They are different. A unity of body, mind, and spirit uncommon among the fractious races gathered here. Serafina drew in a slow breath, fingers still resting on the hilt of her sword. "We fight not for glory or dominion," she declared, projecting her voice so that every translation grid echoed her meaning clearly, "but for the right of every world, no matter how unforgiving, to endure. Let this be our testament." In response, the motes parted to reveal a floating orb of crystalline obsidian, an ancient adjudicator that, once activated, would pronounce the human's performance. It spun once, then twice, then fragmented into 1,000 shards that shot outward and reassembled into a single, flawless prism. Within it, a holographic seal glowed, a stylized phoenix rising from a ring of interwoven glyphs, an emblem nobody recognized. The prism hovered before Serafina, then projected its verdict in a cascade of light. Humanity, endurance exemplified. A chorus of whispers rippled through the assembled delegates. For the first time, debate stirred among them, among beings who had never before considered a single species worthy of unanimous praise. Serafina retrieved her sword from the table and offered it in salute. "Then let us carry this spirit forward," she said, voice unwavering, "to face whatever trials await." As the prism dissolved into motes of light, the exalt nodded gravely. "Proceed to the next chamber, but heed this warning. The greatest dangers lie ahead, and not all trials you face will be of our making." Serafina gathered her team and stepped away from the dais, chest burning with determination. Earth's champions had risen on the first test, and in doing so, had reshaped the delegates' expectations. Now, with newfound respect flickering in alien eyes, they advanced into the unknown, ready to prove that the human spirit could flourish even in the deadliest crucibles of the cosmos. The corridor beyond the obsidian hall was deceptively serene, a winding tunnel of polished onyx that pulsed with soft, bioluminescent veins. Ambassador Serafina Rowe led her exhausted team through the silent passage, each footstep echoing like a heartbeat. The first 3 trials had tested their strength, ingenuity, and unity, and they had prevailed. Yet none could have foreseen the betrayal that awaited them. Suddenly, the walls shuddered and the lights dimmed to a cold, sickly green. Ahead, the corridor opened into a vast chamber where hundreds of glowing pods floated in midair, each cradling a human silhouette in suspended animation. The metallic scent of sterilization mingled with the sharp tang of fear rising in Serafina's throat. Dr. Lin Wei gasped. These are containment pods. They're harvesting biosignatures, genetic samples, neural patterns. They've been studying us all along. Before anyone could react, the matron of Vixila emerged from the shadows, her bioluminescent tendrils flaring with eerie luminescence. "Welcome, Ambassador." Her voice resonated in unison, each syllable layered with hive mind resonance. "Your species was invited to this summit as specimens. Your resilience, your fear, your pain. They are commodities, fuel for the next evolution of my brood." Serafina raised her hand. "You commissioned engineered trials to extract genetic data. You sought to clone human savagery for your hive wars." The matron's tendrils quivered in satisfaction. "Precisely. Your neural cortex produces adaptive synaptic patterns unrivaled in the galaxy. With these clones, my hive will conquer Deathworlds as you have conquered this summit." A low rumble rolled through the chamber as the matron extended a crystalline stalk toward one of the pods. Energy arcs crackled between its tip and the embattled human form inside. Serafina's blood ran cold. There was no time for diplomacy. With a cry, Sergeant Malik Hayes hurled a plasma charge at the stalk. The explosion shattered the crystalline conduit, sending shards of energy dancing across the chamber. Alarm klaxons blared. The pod's suspension fields collapsed and dozens of unconscious humans, scientists, engineers, even agricultural specialists, fell to the floor in a tangled heap. At Serafina's signal, Colonel Anders Vance and Lieutenant Arjun Patel secured the fallen, forming a protective perimeter. Dr. Wei frantically administered emergency triage, her medicancy pack humming as it stabilized shattered limbs and soothed overcharged synapses. Above them, the matron recoiled, tendrils whipping like vipers. "Futile!" she screeched. "My brood will rise in countless thousands." Her words died as the chamber's ceiling panels parted, revealing a sky choked with smoke-streaked red light. Haloed against the inferno were the silhouettes of human warships, sleek frigates, bristling with pulse cannons and quantum torpedoes. A thunderous transmission boomed through the matron's comm relay. "Matron Vixila, this is Fleet Admiral Reyes of the Terran Armada. Any further hostile action against human envoys, and Xwitar Prime will be glassed from orbit." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then the matron's laughter rippled through the chamber, but it carried a tremor of uncertainty. The psionic hum in the air faltered. Serafina stepped forward, voice steady, yet steeled with resolve. "Your summit was never about alliance. You sought dominion over our bodies, but we are not your livestock. We are the bearers of Earth's legacy, freedom, self-determination, and the right to survive on our terms." In response, the warships above executed a slow, deliberate strafing run, their targeting arrays locked on massive ore-processing domes, dotting Xwitar Prime's equator, not the central city. It was a warning shot, and it painted the sky in crimson fire. Below, the matron's hive pod flickered, its power core destabilizing. As the chamber's light surged back to normal intensity, the Exalt of Seathern and the Warlord of Relx appeared at the entrance, their cold gazes fixed on the unfolding drama. The Exalt's vehicular click reverb fell like a decree. Enough. The matron's tendrils sagged. With a final hiss, she turned away and retreated into the shadows. The Exalt advanced, its multiple eyes rotating in what passed for solemnity. "You have revealed the truth of this summit and forced our hand. The assembly will convene on new terms." Serafina nodded, feeling both triumph and trepidation. "Then let these new terms be written in trust, not treachery." As the corridors shifted to guide them back to the summit table, Earth's champions walked tall, bearing scars of betrayal and victory alike. They had uncovered the summit's true purpose, and in doing so, had shattered its foundation. Now, the galaxy would witness a new covenant, one forged not in secret genetic plunder, but in the shared conviction that no species, no matter how small or fearsome, deserved to be anyone's pet. The corridors of Xwitar Prime had never felt so hollow. The delirious glow of the bioluminescent veins that ran through its onyx walls now seemed like bruised veins, pulsing with the aftershocks of conflict. Ambassador Serafina Rowe led her team back to the Obsidian Hall, where the summit table, once a monument to cosmic rivalry, stood scarred and silent. Above them, the sky was blood-tinged and heavy with ash, a testament to the Terran frigate's warning shots. Even the planet's twin moons were veiled by drifting clouds of smoke, as though mourning the betrayal that had nearly cost hundreds of lives. At the dais, the Exalt of Seathern and the Warlord of Relics stood in solemn silence. Between them hovered a crystalline prism, the ancient adjudicator, its facets now dimmed awaiting the Assembly's final judgment. Serafina took a measured step forward, her diplomatic robes stained with soot and plasma residue. With a steady voice amplified through the summit's network, she addressed the gathered delegates. Today, we have faced betrayal crafted in shadows and overcome trials born of malice. We have shown that humanity's strength lies not only in our resilience but in our willingness to stand for justice. Let this moment mark the forging of a true alliance, one built on trust, transparency, and mutual respect. The Exalt's multifaceted eyes blinked, reflecting both the weight of tradition and the spark of something new. Its harmonic voice filled the hall. Humanity has redefined the rules of this summit. We honor your courage, Ambassador, and we accept your terms. With that, the adjudicator's prism brightened and radiated a burst of pure light. When the brilliance subsided, the prism had transformed into a new emblem. A ring of interlocking species sigils encircling Earth's phoenix, symbolizing unity born from adversity. The Warlord of Relics spoke next, its crystalline tones resonant, like a great bell. We pledge to dismantle the covert harvesting programs. No envoy or any life shall be treated as property again. A ripple of agreement passed through the delegates. Even the matron of Vixila, once hidden in shadow, emerged at the chamber's edge. Her tendrils had lost some of their glow, but her eyes, countless and collective, burned with a grudging respect. Serafina inclined her head. Then may this new covenant stand as a beacon to all worlds, that even amidst the deadliest crucibles, compassion and honor will prevail. Outside, the Terran Armada's frigates ascended, their silhouettes retreating into the smog-choked sky. Serafina watched them go, heart swelling with both relief and pride. Beside her, her team, Hayes, Patel, Way, and Vance, stood battered, yet unbowed. Lieutenant Patel smiled first, a rare, genuine grin. "We did it," he said softly, as though testing the reality of their victory. Sergeant Hayes thumped his gauntleted fist into his palm. "Deathworld or not, we're still standing. Earth sure picked the right ambassadors." Dr. Way knelt to examine one last fallen conduit, ensuring no residual energy remained. "Our work here is done, but the bonds we've forged, those will endure." Colonel Vance reactivated his comlink. "Shuttle is ready. Ambassador, shall we depart?" Serafina paused at the threshold of the hall, gazing back at the assembly of alien civilizations, once rivals, now tentative allies. She felt the weight of history in that moment, the promise of a future where no world would face its death world alone. "Let us go home," she said, voice ringing with optimism, "and let the stars themselves carry word that humanity stands watchful, fearless, and united in peace." As they ascended toward the shuttle, the Obsidian Hall's walls pulsed one final time. This time not with ominous trials, but with the steady glow of hope. Above Zetar Prime's smoldering plains, the shuttle climbed through ashen skies into the boundless night. In the endless expanse, Earth's champions carried with them a message as clear as starlight. Betray our trust, and you awaken a force far greater than any death world could hold. An alliance of species bound by honor, and a humanity that would rather burn bright than ever bow in darkness again.